All right. We are live, my friend.
We're live.
After screw up last week.
All good.
You know, it took me, it's funny, after the show, I had a live draft show on Friday, and I tested out again as best I could, following all the instructions. You know, they're making it sound real easy. I'm doing exactly what they said I'm supposed to be doing. And it just didn't look the same, but at least it was recording, and I was like, all right, well, maybe I just have it hooked up weird, but it should be working. But I had nobody to tell me because I can't test it live. You had to test it, you know, to only a couple of people. So anyway, went ahead and did the draft show, had Jared from Draft Sharks check it out for him. Nope, you're not live. You got to be kidding me. So we recorded the show, but it didn't go live. Once again, I'm serious, about 15 hours on tutorials, and there must be something that I'm not doing. And I just went over and over everything until finally, I changed settings as much as I could. And luckily, the next day, it's funny, of course, it took me until I found one of those companies like Nerd App. And it cost me like $50 for $25 every 15 minutes to have them help me. And the funny thing is, as soon as I got the guy on, as I'm showing him what I do, all of a sudden it worked.
Naturally,
so,
yeah.
What do you? Wait. What did you do anything? No, I just pressed the start stream button like you do, and I go, you got to be kidding me. I go, at least it worked. I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, I paid $50 for it, but at least it worked. So the only thing I can think of is that it after I did screw around with it enough, especially that last time on that last day before I called the guy, it probably needed 24 hours because I probably did something right. And then I needed 24 hours for it to finally click in because, and we did a test. It worked. And this is the very first live show.
Hey, here we are. And I just checked on my YouTube on my phone, and it came up.
You see us.
I see us.
All right. So we're sounding like a bunch of kids at a candy store.
Hey, and remarkably, I know before we hopped on, we were chatting, and I couldn't see you, but you just popped up. I don't know if that matters or anything, but
visually,
there you are.
Now you can see
I could not see you. It was just a white screen, but now you're back. There you go. So, hey, who knows? Okay. As long as it's working, whatever. Yep.
Now, bear with me. I know we only have a couple of viewers right now, and obviously the idea is over time, we're going to have a lot more than that. We want the interactions with you guys. So you know what? Having a viewer, even if you're only one or two of you out there, these are the best times because if you do ever want to chat with us, you're not going to have to wait in line. So if you have anything to say whatsoever, just use the chat. This is the reason we're doing this. This is the only reason, is to be able to chat with you guys live and to have communication with you guys live. So, but we have to get to the story, of course, of why we weren't live on Sunday. Now that had nothing. I was all set up, ready to go, but your son and their baseball team won on Saturday, so they played on Sunday. Now, did they play a doubleheader on Sunday?
Yep, all good. Yep, good. He's surprisingly doing better than I thought. He'll watch this. I'm not going to say, again, I wasn't expecting much. So, yeah, good job, buddy. They did good.
And so what's their situation? Did they win both?
Yeah, yep.
So where are they now?
Just kind of back. It's like tournaments. It's like now we're back kind of like Little League play this week. Got a game tomorrow night. So kind of the normal flow of Little League baseball.
But most of them aren't on the weekends, are they?
Yeah, sometimes they'll have travel ball. I know they try to front load them early. That way, if you need rainouts, you got built-in days later. And there's a tournament at the end, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll have another game. I actually pick up my 5-year-old is also playing. His first game is Saturday morning at 9:15. Wife will be out of town, so just me and the kids.
It's that time of year.
Yep, and he's got picture day before their first game, and then my 9-year-old, one we're just talking about playing, plays at 12:15 with pictures before that. So I'm like, are we just kind of spending our whole day at the ballpark? But,
yeah.
So that's part of, I guess, kids in sports. I'm sure other people understand.
Yeah, because I asked CJ what he was doing. I said, hey, so, I told him what you were doing. I said, so what are you doing? He goes, basically, he said the same thing.
Yeah.
At the ballpark with my son.
That's how it goes this time of year. But, yep. So at least we got him in, because there's nothing worse than, because you obviously know in May, I'm pretty much my second mortgage will go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. At least we're not making up games, because right now I'm good as far as games. I'm only missing one game.
Makeups are no good. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you start getting the rain dates and makeups, and they throw them in the random weekdays. I'm like, I'm supposed to get there at practice, and now you've got a game at 5:45, and that's until 6, and practice-wise. So right now we're good.
So when does the season end?
June.
June. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually, unfortunately, because the best race to actually do a live show, especially to do it for like the last hour, is a race at Talladega or Daytona. But unfortunately, that next race doesn't come until August 26th, which is really late. Now, that started last year?
2020, I think.
Okay.
Is the last regular season. I think it was 2020.
So it used to be, what, was it 4th of July?
4th of July weekend, yeah.
So that's a significant month and a half difference. So we're going to have to pick another race, which we'll leave it up in part, if we can, to the viewers. So let us know what you think. Now, schedule-wise, we'll know in advance, because you'll be able to check the schedule and see what the situation is. Which ones are, there may be an issue, so forget that. So whatever's definitely not an issue, and it's got to be a decent enough race too, not a race that could be a blowout. So what do you think is coming up that might be a good race in the next month, looking at the schedule? Forget Illinois.
I know May. Yeah, I know May won't work because I'll be at the Speedway, and I won't be able to live stream anything out there, because I know you can't, if for rules, as people maybe live stream while I'm at the track. I wouldn't be able to show any on-track action because of TV contracts, and we don't want to get that not only copyrighted, but real trouble. Like, hey, you're I'm trying to think of June. I know.
Well, June you've got Sonoma, Chicago's in July. Boy, there's only 3 races in June.
Yeah, they're all for Father's Day weekend. Yeah, that's the weekend they're off.
They got the street course in Chicago, the 2nd of July. Here it is. Ohio. How about Atlanta?
Yeah,
on July 9th.
What weekend's that? I need to be sure I'll be in town. But yeah, that right now we'll send it that, and I'll
that looks like a because that's
like a Daytona Talladega style.
Yeah. But if you guys have anything out there, again, maybe we're lucky and it'll match up with a Sunday that you might be available. Because are they? I mean, there's like no Saturday racing at all.
No. Gosh, is Bristol night the next one? I'm trying to think on the top of my head. They kind of shifted.
Well,
to
the
Sunday
Coke
night.
Zero, is that Saturday night?
Sunday night.
Sunday night. So the
Memorial Day. Yep.
Sunday night.
Oh, you're talking about Coke Zero, Daytona. That's a Saturday night.
That is Saturday.
That would probably be the next one. I could look at the schedule.
So that's the next. Wow.
That might be the next one.
That's crazy.
They've kind of shifted. I remember writing about that in the off season when the schedule and times went out. Here, I got the schedule now. A lot of times they were switching to Sunday nights instead of Saturday nights because of ratings, and it obviously worked out because Martinsville was one of the things I was going to bring up. I got it right here. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
I switched over to my computer. Martinsville was up again, partly because it's Chase Elliott's first race back, but it was up 11% from last year. And last year was a Saturday night race. This year was a Sunday afternoon. So they've kind of noticed how Saturday night races, Fox isn't going to typically air those. It's going to get bumped to FS1. So you're going to get kind of your diehard and your kind of 2 to 2.5 million people are probably going to tune in. You go to Big Fox on a Sunday, even a Sunday night, you're kind of ranging up to the 4 million viewer mark. So you're almost got 20, 30% higher ratings just by going a day later. So NASCAR's adapted, which is why Atlanta's a Sunday night.
Is there a difference between Saturday night racing, traffic-wise, during football season? Is it like a lot worse?
Football usually. Yeah, I think for racing, because a lot of people, especially NASCAR, like we talked about, their fan base, the core is the Southeast. You get Alabama, Tennessee,
Sure.
South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, these teams playing.
Yeah.
The race just becomes secondary, so why not move it to Sunday? And that's the one thing that people have asked a lot too, like, oh, NASCAR, their TV ratings. I know Chase Elliott brought it up at Bristol last year. Is why are we racing against the NFL on Sundays? Well, it's because they're valuable to NBC, ESPN, ABC. They kind of are bidding for this new TV market or TV contract because they're not going to punt on Sunday afternoon TV because, CBS and Fox have the 1 and 4 o'clock NFL windows. They get a bunch of the ratings naturally already. But what's NBC supposed to do until their Sunday night football broadcast starts? You're just going to air infomercials.
If it wasn't for those West Coasters, you could actually do racing. Imagine if they scheduled like a race at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday during football season.
Good. Yeah.
That would be awesome. And leading up until Fox on Sunday.
Yep. I mean, people already have to track anyways.
That would be
you
awesome.
can do that. You can lead into it, or you can still put the start time up. That's why they do 2 o'clock, because they don't want to go 1 o'clock right at the start of the NFL window. I get it. But why not start at noon? An hour before then.
Yes, on Sunday. Watching 3 o'clock. Nope, not 3 o'clock. 3:25. The week before, though, for whatever reason, whatever time they said they were starting, they started. It's like, make up your minds. Are you going to start as soon as you guys come on the air, or are you going to start 25 minutes after you say you? I don't know from week to week when they're starting. When they say they're going to start.
Usually, when it starts. That week was moved up because of the threat of rain. But
I wish there was a threat of rain every week then.
Well, this week there will be. I don't know if we're racing Sunday. It looks pretty bleak over there in Delaware. Usually, if you see 3 o'clock start, just know it's probably more 3:20 to 3:30. They never really start typically on that time. So this week, 2 o'clock start. Do they start at 2 o'clock?
Really?
Doubtful. Yeah, because Dover doesn't have lights. So they moved it. They got start time up to 2. However, before we came on, I noticed there's like a 70 to 80% chance of rain. So we'll see. We'll see if that race actually runs on Sunday.
Yeah, of course. Rain when we actually get an opportunity to start at 2. Then there'll be a rain delay, and we'll start at 4 anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of the ratings, I got it. I don't know if people have seen Talladega was back up. Remember we talked about this when Chase Elliott was out. The TV ratings, I got it in front of me. Vegas tumbled 12%. First race he was out. Phoenix 15% down. Atlanta 15% down. Coda 16% down. Richmond 42% down. Bristol Dirt 14% down. Elliott's back. Martinsville's 11% up. Talladega's up again, 5%. Numbers are rising. That's a good thing. The only thing I caution, it's good that he's back and these numbers are going up. However, we don't know how much those numbers are tied to him. I know it's got to have an impact, but is it bad for the sport that one driver controls that big of a market for your TV? I think you got to promote other drivers.
We talked about that last week. It's terrible.
Yep. So here we go again. It's up again. Great. But that also goes to show you the brand recognition of Chase Elliott to NASCAR. You got to find a couple more, because that's not good when he's out and this is what happens. Because, hey, now they're up. That's a good thing. But in the meantime, let's find some more drivers to market, because nothing gets chased. But I think this is what show that when one person goes down, you shouldn't have that big of a drop.
They're going to, like you said, just taking a look at the weather, it might be one of those situations, and I know they're not going to do it, but it should be one of those situations where once they're into like Saturday night or first thing on Sunday morning, they need to, if depending on how the rain looks, they should just say, all right, we're gonna race at 2 o'clock on Monday. That's it. Just get ahead of it. Don't do this nonsense where we're waiting for you to tell us whether it's gonna rain or does it stop, and then we can clear the track, and then it rains again. Just go ahead and as early as possible, just throw it in on Monday if it's gonna be that bad. So,
and the banking of this track, this isn't part of the wet weather package. So some people might ask, if they could run in the wet like they did kind of Martinsville. Won't happen. Okay. They don't have it. It's too fast of a track. The baby's too much there. It wouldn't be a good product. So there is not that package for this race.
All right. So unfortunately, we have to talk about what happened because once again, the best drivers did not win, and once again, we got screwed. I mean,
yep. I got stats for that. I wrote about that this week.
I was watching. All right, first part of the race. Even though Chase Elliott won the stage, that was just all about pitting at the right time. That's it.
Yep.
For 3/4 of the race, I swear to you, every time I looked, I had like the top 8 cars. I had money on the top 8 for like 3/4 of the race. Figured, all right, even if there's a little bit of wreck there, I still got whatever. End of the race comes. Wow, the big wreck hasn't come yet. It's going to come. Of course, it's going to come now. Why? I got a couple hundred on Blaney. I got a couple hundred on Harvick. I got a couple hundred on Hamlin. They're all sitting there in the top 4 or 5. Something's going to happen. Sure enough, it happens. Just like we talked about with Truex not having enough tires, what weird, ridiculous, nonsensical thing happens? We don't have enough gas.
Not enough gas.
We got to pit for gas. Are you effing kidding me? And then to watch the end and the way it worked out again. Look, here we go again. It's okay as far as NASCAR is concerned to do this. Well, we want all this more excitement nonsense. But once again, if they just end the race exactly like the old days we talked about last week with Dale Earnhardt Jr., if you end it with 4 or 5 laps to go, Ryan Blaney wins the race. He was clearly leading the last 30 laps. He was clearly, I don't care what anybody says, Blaney was the best car. He was setting up to be, because he's usually the best car. He was setting up to win that race. And then the caution comes out. Because why? Once again, because drivers are trying to do wacky, crazy moves. And it just, what's all of a sudden, I blinked and it went 3 wide.
Yep.
And so you knew something was going to happen. And then as soon as Hamlin and Harvick got taken out, and then we had that last run, and then I figured, okay, I have money on Wallace, I have money on Blaney, I'm still looking pretty good. And of course, as soon as the incident happens, ding, ding, caution. So we can throw the caution out and end the race on the last lap. And that's okay. But you can't do it a few laps earlier when the better cars are supposed to be winning. That doesn't make it doesn't compute. It doesn't make any sense because it's not like it's happening once or twice. All right, it's a freak thing. I'll go with it. It's happening almost every freaking week. Yep. Enough of this. It's got to stop. It has to stop.
6 of the last 8 race winners on the season had no rhyme or reason. 6 of 8. And to your point, which we even talked about last week, goes to my point I've been saying all along. Can we just end in regulation?
I want that for now.
End in regulation,
yes.
Because that helps the Hamlin and Harvick call. Because that's where people I've heard say, they add for incidentals in the betting market. No, they don't, because the teams don't. Hamlin and Harvick and majority of the field all playing for the race to end at lap 188. That's how they were so low on fuel. Because how can you plan for fuel to go past when it's not scheduled to go
That's
past?
their fault?
Yeah. They plan to end on 188, so you take the 188, you don't have to drop dead. That's your ending time of lap 188. They're not pitting to get more gas in the end because you're going to overtime. And I need to look. I'm pretty sure Ryan Blaney probably wins the race if he ended at lap 188.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure. Yeah.
Just like Kyle Busch, quickly enough, wins Talladega, would have won the Daytona 500 on lap 200.
Did you have Kyle Busch, too?
Yeah,
we had Kyle Busch in the 500.
Kyle won Daytona, yeah.
Doesn't win that one.
But he wins
this one. We didn't have him.
And and this is why I went deeper. And it's like there is literally no rhyme or reason for these winners. Here's why. We'll start with Talladega. Kyle Busch, 1 career Talladega win. His last super speedway win came in 2008. That comes a week after Kyle Larson scored his first Martinsville win. who is a place that he's dreaded going to. 2 top 5s and 11 Martinsville tries, 11 of the 16 finishing outside the top 15. He won. 2 weeks before, Richmond. Hendrick had 1 win in 27 starts. Larson had 1 top 5 in his last 8 Richmond starts. He wins. Byron, back-to-back weeks, Vegas and Phoenix. 20 combined starts at those tracks entering this season. 1 top 5 finish. He wins both. Logano, Atlanta, 0 for 18 coming into this year. His last top 5 finish was 2015. He wins. That's why there is just no rhyme or reason for some of these winners. There's nobody that could predict that. There's nobody that's sitting there like, well, I had William Byron at. Why? Why would you have him? This goes to show you past stats don't matter. And they really just don't matter much anymore. And the drivers that are probably going to win are not going to win, because I went further. Kyle should have won the 500, Daytona 500. Kyle Larson should have won Vegas before that late race caution. Harvick had Phoenix won before the caution. Truex had Richmond won before the caution. And then you had Blaney, of course, this last weekend. It just, the guys that typically were going to win that most people probably have money on don't win because of a caution at the end of the race that just changes everything. And people might say, well, I want that exciting finish. You still didn't get it in Talladega. Same with the Daytona 500. They both ended under yellow before we got back to the checkered anyways. So what's it really matter whether you're ending at lap 188 for Talladega or 200 for the Daytona 500? You still didn't see them race back around again. So why not just end at regulation, take the randomness out of it? It makes drivers probably drive better towards the end. I mean, what was Bubba Wallace thinking? I get it. Him and Blaine, like, well, you had to do what you had to do. But blocking 3 lanes, we all knew that wasn't going to work. And if he doesn't do that, you probably don't see the wreck, and Blaney still wins anyway. So, yeah, just a lot of frustration there with that.
So Matthew Jones, I'm assuming you meant car. So which car died in overtime? Which car? There were several that died in overtime, right?
As far as ran out of gas?
Yes.
Yes, several. I know 2 big ones are Harvick.
Gibbs ran out of gas, right?
Gibbs ran out right coming to the green. Remember, he pulled on the apron.
Almirola?
I think he had a pit. I think Suarez had a pit. I think all but like 5 cars pit. So I think most of them did.
Yeah.
Busch was supposed to. Remember, he stayed out. He got lucky. Because Kyle was called to come to pit lane, and because he already had a win, he just, hey, let's gamble. We run out, we run out. But that's the other factor, too, is how dangerous is that in the pack if you run out of gas? In the middle, I got front of the pack, like, oh, I'm out of gas. There were several. The 2 most notable were Hamlin and Harvick, who were up in the top 5 at that point.
I don't know. Matthew, so I guess it was his card. My betting card died in overtime. What was your betting card, Matthew? So, yeah, I mean, your betting card, that's just the story of the year for our betting cards all year. Is anything goes to overtime, we're screwed. So,
and it's not like they're going to overtime. It's like the right team's winning. It's like, it'd be like,
exactly.
Well, didn't the Lakers and Grizzlies go to overtime last night? But it'd be like, let's say the Lakers are up by 20 with 2 minutes to go, and they're like, oh, let's throw this in overtime just because we need an exciting finish. And because LeBron dribbled off his foot out of bounds with a minute to go. So let's just go ahead and let's spot the Grizzlies some points and bring it back, and let's just screw all the bettors that had the Lakers, and let's bring them back.
Yeah, either that or you know, you have 2 teams going to overtime, and the one team has their 2 best players get disqualified going into overtime
for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason, and the other team wins because of that, even though the other team was the better team.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle was 3 laps all day. 3 laps.
Yeah, he was like between 6th and 10th for. That was his high mark for most of the race when he was in that position. He was never really in the top 5 until the last lap or 2.
Well, I mean, it goes to show you, too, the randomness of the guys having to pit. Like Chase Briscoe, 2 laps down, hurt his fingers, spun on pit road, was literally stuck on pit road. He finishes in the top 5. Keselowski, track position, never had it. doesn't pit, gets it back. And so it's all about finding the track position at the right time, which who thought we would say that for a super speedway race, but that's all it is, track position.
Yeah, again, this is why I just think that whenever you're racing at these super speedways anymore, just race it to win it from the start.
Yep.
Just get to the front, and just the more laps you lead, the more times you're in the front. Not that accidents don't happen in the front before the last lap or two, because they do, but it's a lot more rare that occurs. And if you have the best car and you're in the lead, you're in the first you're always battling for the lead, then you have a much better chance that you're not going to get into any sort of altercation. I'm sure Noah Gregson would disagree with that. So
yeah.
Who was it that hit him?
Chastain.
Okay. And that was just bad timing, right? I believe.
Yeah, I feel like Chastain kind of pushed him out a little bit and made a move to go low, but
was that the caution that put everything really into a whack at the end?
Yeah, because that was when Larson or pre-snailed Larson. I would have thought it probably been better if Chastain just, again, there goes a bonehead move.
Yeah, he was being too aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, you just didn't need to do it right there. You could have just drafted with Gragson on the backstretch, but that's where it comes into the dire, like, well, I'm just going to go for the lead. I got to go for it. I got to be, and I get it. You got to be aggressive, but there's temper it down a little bit. You should have probably pushed Gragson instead of causing a wreck with a guy that's a rookie. I mean, it's like you kind of had to know the audience. Feel the temperature in the room, right? Like, he's a rookie. He's granted he's raced at Talladega before. He's had success there in Xfinity Series, but he's a rookie in Cup, and you push him out there and make there wasn't much room. There was a little bit of room, but not the right situation I would have done that in.
Yeah. So Matthew had Gibbs as a top Toyota and Almirola to win, Bubba to win. So he has Bubba to win with the lead and doesn't get it, but the Gibbs one for top Toyota was 14-1.
He was there.
He was there. He just ran out of gas.
That's where I feel bad, because my man, like, he won. You won your bet. You were there.
Oh, he's definitely going to win it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I feel bad. Yeah, he was there to win it. And then with Bubba getting wrecked in the end, like and Almirola, he was one of our picks, and he was there. I think he had to pit too, and then he got caught up in that last lap crash with over there in turn one. So, yeah, that unfortunately is how NASCAR betting has gone this year.
By the way, Paul, who we've heard from before, we do appreciate that you appreciate that we do the shows early in the week, and that's and I don't know if we would be doing it this way if this was 5 years ago and they had multiple practices, maybe 3 practices, and qualifying was.
Yep.
We might have a harder time doing it on a Tuesday because a lot more went into figuring out who was going to win the race when they had that system in place. And it was a different car, and it was a lot more predictable on what was going to happen. Now, it just doesn't really matter. I mean, I forget even sometimes to check practice and qualifying, to tell you the truth, because it doesn't really matter much.
Yeah, it's only 25 minutes. I mean, it's not, and they've all said you can't really, they either need to extend it, or some are like, why do we even do this at all, other than just running a couple install laps? Because, like, you can't make changes because they're usually impound. You practice, they call the P&Q, practice and qualify. When you qualify, it's an impound. So you can't touch the car. So in practice, in that short amount of time, how much can you really change? If you go out there and like, this doesn't feel right, well, it's like, you can change a little bit, but you're on the clock because you have to go qualify, and then it's an impound. So you're not really getting much. It's not like because guys run different agendas. At least in the past, you have 3 50-minute practice sessions. You can.
Yep.
Some guys might go short run pace. Some guys might run long run pace. But at the very end, you have all that data to go off of. Now it's just like some guys are like, well, I'm not even going to worry about short run. I'm just going to go long run. And then you'll look at a 10-lap average chart, but you might be missing handful 7, 8, 9, 10 drivers that didn't do that. So how do they truly stack up when those guys aren't even? It's just
there was like a strategy to it when you're handicapping it. Who's got the 10-lap averages again, and how did they go from third practice to second practice to first practice? Are they getting better each practice?
Yep.
Everything. It was just so much, if you really did your homework and again, because it was predictable, there was the rhyme and reason for us to put all this information together. But now it's just not the case, which is why doing a show on a Tuesday, it just makes sense. And again, we always say this, and that is because so everybody knows, we're giving our picks on Tuesday. Yes, sure, we would probably change our picks a little bit if we had to make them every Sunday morning, every Saturday, but not a lot, and a lot of it does have to do with the odds, about how much the odds are going to change, really.
Well, and this is good to do it early, is because they can change after qualifying and stuff like that kind of factor. So we could give you these stats, and you could jump in on the early numbers, because they're not going to change much between now and practice and qualifying anyways. It's NASCAR's not that big betting. It's kind of just a niche still, where you're not going to see a bunch of people jump in on, like this week, Truex Jr. is a good play at 13-1, but you're not going to see thousands of people jump in on him today to their Friday, where he's going to go from 13-1 to 9-1. It's just not going to happen. So, but if you like drivers early, and we give you these stats, that grab them now, because it could change the qualifying.
And that's what the show is. The show is not for me and Eric. Otherwise, we would just be picking up the phone. Hey, what's going on, man? How was the race? So this is for you guys. So
to educate,
to give you as much information as possible, as well, to anybody out there that is even just an expert. So it's for everybody, the experts and the novices alike. And the more we can give it to you in advance to prep you for the races, the better. It's good all the way around. And yeah, you were saying that with the odds, because remember a couple of weeks ago, it was the Martinsville race. I think I texted you about the odds. Like, wasn't Byron like 4-1 or something like that after qualifying and practice?
Yep.
How the hell did Byron become 4-1 and the next driver was like 7 or 8-1 or something like that?
Yeah, he really dropped them, and it's like, whoa.
He's like he's Vegas's favorite this year, Byron.
He is. He's the golden horseshoe for them right now.
They are, because even this race, we're going to get into it in just a minute. For him to have the same odds, pretty much, as Larson and Elliott, when you look at Larson and Elliott's experience at this track, doesn't compute. It just doesn't. It's just that Byron's their golden boy. And if you're a Byron fan, and I know they're out there, if you're a Byron fan, that's not good, because your odds are not going to be good each week. That's when you pretty much have to wait until qualifying and hope that your odds go up the other way, depending on exactly where you start. Like this week, you wouldn't, if you're a Byron guy, you don't even touch him until after qualifying and hope your odds, swing the other way.
Yeah, because he's one that I wouldn't be shocked if he won, but for 5-1 for somebody that he's not been these odds before. Granted, teaser, I obviously took him in this week, and we'll explain when we get to my picks. But if this was like truly like drop dead, you picked this week, I would be fading him until we'll see what we got this weekend, because that's a little steep. I would have thought the defending winner, Chase Elliott, would be 5. He should be 5-1.
Yeah, sure.
He actually has won there.
Yeah. The odds are actually good this week. I like the odds. There's a lot of good odds out there. So
it is basically
doesn't mean we're gonna pick the right driver again.
It's basically Hendrick versus Gibbs versus the field. It's kind of what I took it as. It's all Hendrick, and rightfully so. Hendrick and Gibbs up top. And you got a lot of value mid-pack on down for the field. So, but you can't choose them all. So it's you kind of got to strategize which ones you're going to grab. And granted, that is probably going to be Chase Elliott leading 90% of the laps, and there's going to be a late race caution. And Ryan Blaney, who has
2 top 10s,
0 top 5s, and 12 career Dover starts, is going to somehow get a win.
And by the way, sneak peek, that's why I put money on Blaney this week.
Make up for last week. It's good value.
So last week in our fantasy, Kyle won, so CJ got the win, but he ended up in second place. So he's lucky he got the win. If he didn't get the win, man, he would have been buried.
Yeah.
So he got the win, which was good. I came in second. You were in third. So I've had 2 straight weeks where at least now I'm starting to catch up to you just a little bit. So
you're snapping at the heels a little bit.
110 points I've made up the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Still 400 back.
They're doing about what I thought. Still getting me top 15, top 20s. I knew there'd be a lull a little bit.
You're not getting anything out of Denny Hamlin.
No, that's what he did this last year. Remember? Then he picked it up. I'm like, hey, if one of my worst drivers is Denny, then we're gonna be in great shape. Yep.
And let's see. So again, last week I picked up Stenhouse, and I still feel good about that because we talked about what would CJ do, and CJ decided to keep Priest and Dillon and AJ and Gibbs over Stenhouse. Which one of those drivers, if you had the choice, Gibbs, AJ, Dillon, and Priest and Stenhouse, who would be the first guy out?
Priest. After seeing how the season's gone, I don't know if he'll win. AJ can always win on a road course. I think Kyle basically showing he got lucky, but he won Talladega. He should have won Daytona. Also, Dillon won Daytona last year. That I keep Dillon just because he got some super speedways.
Gibbs?
Gibbs is really improving.
So you would do Stenhouse after Priest?
No, I think I'd probably do Priest, Allmendinger, Dillon. I'd keep Stenhouse.
Wow.
He's a playoff driver.
Yeah.
That was my path last year. If you get a playoff driver, keep him.
And he's actually still, like we said last week, and now we're going to preview a little teaser into this week. He's still interesting.
He's my top sleeper. He's my top long shot, I should say, this week. So
he's interesting. So
he is. I would not drop a playoff driver just because of the points. And we've seen how in the playoffs it's typically dominated. Other than last year, I know the beginning was non-playoff drivers, and then when you look up, it's all playoff drivers up front when it matters the most. You got a playoff driver. Talladega's in the second round. If he somehow gets out of the first round, in the round of 8, I mean, he was in the top 10 at Talladega again till the end.
Yeah, he still has to be more consistent. If he just doesn't have a really good second half, it's not going to matter.
No.
We need to see if he's going to throw some top 10 in there every 2 weeks. If he can do that,
he's where my value is, with kind of like I had Suarez last year. He's a guy now that he's improved enough to where he's a top 20 right now driver. He just 18th, 19th, occasionally 13th. If your bottom guy, who's also a playoff driver, is getting that for you, you're going to make headway in the playoffs. It's just accumulating more and more points for you. So that's why I would have dropped Priest, because I just don't think he's going to have to win to be a playoff driver. And I just don't know if he's going to do it.
Yeah. And if we're really talking about Ricky Stenhouse, by the way, I saw something, I don't know if it was something I missed because we didn't talk about it, but it said 6 days ago on the YouTube thing when I saw it. But did Keselowski and Buescher switch teams? Was that last year or was that this year?
No, they're on the same. They're with RFK. What's weird is a lot of these smaller organizations like JTG. Did
I say Keselowski or Stenhouse?
You said Keselowski.
Okay, it was Stenhouse and Buescher, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times they'll outsource the pit crew.
Yeah.
So RFK basically has like, hey, we've got these guys, and you 5 are gonna go to the 6 car, you're gonna go to 17, and you guys are gonna go to JTG shop. You're gonna pit their car. You're gonna work out here, but they're paying us for you. So they had like the second rated. I don't know how they came up with this pit crew from the week before, and they swapped them. They basically are like, well, those guys are good, so let's put them on the 17 car, and the 17 pit crew, you're going to go to the 47 car.
So Stenhouse. When was this?
This just happened.
A week ago.
Talladega.
So it did happen a week ago. Why would
Yep.
that be the case when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is actually doing well?
It's because RFK knows that those are their guys,
and they
could use.
Okay.
Because JTG's a Chevy, they've really got no affiliation. It's just JTG is paying RFK for the pit
it's like a loan.
So, yeah. So I get RFK. Like, well, if you're them, you'd be dumb not to. Like, well, if they're one of the best pit crews, let's bring them back in-house. And we'll, out of the three, you take all of them, like, well, this is the worst one, so you go over there. So that's where Stenhouse was pissed. It was like, well, they basically took my ride from me because that was his old car, and now you take my pit crew from me and put it back and give me my old pit crew from when I was a 17 car. So, yeah, that was the drama. But Rick Keselowski's like kind of a non-story. We have the right to do that. We pay those guys. They're our pit crew. We can do what we want. But it was just kind of weird timing. And I don't know if anybody saw, but on pit road, saying the NASCAR gods always laugh. You know who was pit next to each other? Stenhouse and Busch.
Okay.
The pit crews were right next to each other. The ones they swapped literally were next door neighbors.
That was just by accident, yeah.
Yeah, just happened to be that way. So it's like that.
That must have been interesting. I would like to be a reporter with the mic just hanging out over there, see if I can pick up anything.
And like Stenhouse said, where he feels bad is that was his pit crew for this year. So imagine if you're that crew, like, all right, we're on a team, we're going to the playoffs, we know we're a spot, and oh, well, now we're not anymore. Now we're on that team. It's kind of like in baseball or basketball. You get the trade deadline, and the guys that are kind of bench guys they're all right, I'm on the team, I'm going to playoffs, and now you're going to Cleveland, or you're going out here.
Well, at least in this situation, these guys, they get a chance to, hey, put up, man. Just show them that you can actually do it. So
well, and two, JTG, now they've won the 500, and as they're trying to grow, it might be time for them to hire their own. 2311, Denny Hamlin made this. So a lot of people may not realize prior to this season, because they're affiliated with Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing, the pit crews for both cars at 2311 last year were from Gibbs. They did kind of the same thing. Like, they were kind of loaner guys. They contracted employees through them that 2311 would use. But they had no hand in it. So, like, if they were screwing up on pit road, which we saw a lot with Bubba, they didn't have a say in, like, well, I want to switch that guy out, or this isn't going well, and these guys should be fired. They don't have a say. They were under contract. Yeah. Hamlin took it upon himself, like, you know what? We're going to hire our own guys. We're going to go out and hire our own pit crews for our own guys, and we're going to have our own guys on our own cars. We're not going to go through Gibbs. So JTG, fair or not, that's what they paid for, is they pay RFK for their pit crew guys. And granted, they probably don't have the facility for the training and the pit stop practice and all that at RFK. So it does make sense to do what they were doing. But you're kind of a victim of your own success, because these guys are doing good. You won the Daytona 500. They're giving you track position and for good pit stops. Well, if you're RFK, wouldn't it make sense for you to bring it back?
So there's no like when they're on loan, that's it. They're financially compensating for the loan. And is that it? Or could there be a way, and maybe there is a way, but could there be a way where if you guys do well with our guys, we get a percentage?
It could probably be different wording in contracts. I would presume on the surface it's, we'll just use the number 5 because it's simple. So we'll say out of the 15 guys, out of the 3 cars, the 6, 17, and the 47, that are all under the RFK umbrella, that their paychecks are probably written by RFK Racing. And JTG will pay a sum to RFK to use those guys. But RFK basically saying, well, we write their paychecks. We can put them anywhere we want. Granted, there's probably nothing in the wording of the contract that JTG may want to revisit. Like, hey, for next year, I want to maybe have a say on who we get out of those guys. Maybe I'll pay a little extra that I can maybe lock some of these guys in.
But I'd rather have a percentage that says if we're doing well, we get to keep these guys, but we'll be glad to give you a percentage of what we make because of it.
Yeah, and I think that'd be fair, depending on what.
This way, they might be reluctant to make the switch. They go, you know what? They're doing well. We can make actually just as much money if we just keep them there with those guys.
Leave them alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little inside story that nobody else is talking about, that we could probably give you guys of what's going on. That's why it happened, and there's a little behind the scenes stuff that they do that. Whereas like a Hendrick, where you hear them like, oh, they're going to switch Byron's crew with Elliott, or they're all in house. It doesn't matter.
No big
they're
deal.
getting paid.
Yeah.
And when you get to the playoffs,
it happens. Yeah.
As the cars
get eliminated,
off, like, well, they put all-star crews together, as they should. Yeah. Why would you not? So yeah, there's some teams out there that outsource. I'm not sure if like Front Row Motorsports, I'm sure they probably do. They probably outsource from somebody. I would presume the Wood Brothers uses Penske's guys for the 21 cars since they're kind of aligned. So that happens. It's just how it goes. I think Trackhouse did that with RCR a few years ago when they got started. They were using their cars, their shop. So yeah, as you grow bigger, you hire your own. And but there's enough guys out there now that you probably could hire your own. But I don't know what that cost would be. I mean, you got to pay a jackman and a fueler and tire carriers and tire changers and pick. Because I'm assuming the pick gun, everything probably just comes from RFK. It just, here's a sum and here you go. We don't have to worry about it. And we know these guys show up every week. So I get both sides of the coin there.
Futures, we haven't talked about futures in a few weeks. So just taking a look, I was surprised that Kyle Busch, actually, I think he went from 8-1 to 9-1, and he won last week.
Yeah.
That was weird. So I definitely felt like I had to take advantage of that. I hadn't taken him in the last couple of weeks. And Elliott is still sitting there as the second choice at 7-1. That has got to be partly because there's a lot of Elliott fans wagering on him, because he shouldn't be second in the championship odds.
He shouldn't, and what concerns me is all it's going to take is one. If he's there now, and he's not even in the
he'll
playoffs,
be 4-1 if he wins this week.
Yeah, so that's what I'm like. My thing was like I was avoiding him, but it's like I might as well just start taking him, because all it's going to take is one win, and his odds are going. If he's the second favorite now, what's he going to be when he wins and becomes the favorite? I mean, those odds are going to drop quick. So yeah, you might as well grab him. Like I said a few weeks, or I think it was last week, that I think he's going to be a playoff driver. He's going to win at some point.
Oh yeah.
So while you can get him, at 7-1, you might as well.
And then Harvick is starting to come down a little bit. He's at 12-1, still a bargain. Blaney and Chastain as well have really two of the better bargains as far as the odds at 15-1. And all it'll take for Blaney or Chastain to go from like 15-1 to like 8-1 is a win. That's it. They're going to win. Boom. Yep. They're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 drivers, odds-wise. So.
Yep, and we've seen how good Blaney's been at Phoenix. Again, you got to remember that's the championship race, and that's what we're going here, the championship future. Who's good at that track? Blaney was runner-up there in that race last year. Chastain was in the championship for. They said 236 feet from victory. Harvick, that's his playground. He should have won Phoenix back in the spring. So all it takes is hammer these guys now, because if they get, we know they're going to be in the playoffs, but if they start making a run, those numbers aren't going to last long.
I'm surprised even Truex now still 20-1 for Martin Truex Jr. And you would think, man, he's got to be off to a really slow start. He's 7th in points, and he's 20-1. And you know, chances are he's going to get better. So just like Hamlin. I mean, Hamlin's behind him in the point standings, and Hamlin is 10-1. So
double the odds for.
They're both off to slow starts, and you know they're just going to get better. And then Bowman is still a disrespectful 20-1.
Yeah, I don't get that. I still don't get that. But I'm taking them wise those odds.
And then I finally put more money on Briscoe this week, because now he's got 3 straight top 5s, and he's now looking like the driver kind of thought he would be at the beginning of the season. And yet he's still sitting there at 80-1.
He was top 5. He won Phoenix last spring. Remember that? His one win.
There you go.
Top five in the fall last year. Harvick's his teammate. We saw what he did in the spring. So, yeah, 80-1.
Yeah, he actually started. I'm surprised he started out at 40-1 when the season began.
I think because of his run last year.
And you took him 40-1. And So did I. So we jumped on him early, but we have enough money on him now. So I've got 16,000 on him, and you have 20,000 on him.
So, that's why I skipped him this week.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he'll necessarily win this week. No, while Elliott's still at 7, I got to waste 100 his way. Just
you got enough.
I don't want to keep. Yeah, we got enough right now to ride it for a little bit.
All right, let's talk about Dover and probably a Monday race. So at least we're letting you know on Tuesday to make your schedule the way it is. Set it up for a potential Monday race. If you look at it, it's been really hit or miss when it comes to starting position and whether it matters or not at Dover. Because if you look at it this way, 8 of the last 12 winners started in the top 10. That included 6 that started in the top 5. 5 of those actually started in second place. So I haven't seen that anywhere else. But hey, second place seems to be the number. But the last 3 winners at Dover started 4th, 16th, and 17th. And we are and now last year was 4th and was a new car. So I'm willing to go still with the fact that even though you had the 16th and 17th in there, Dover appears to be a track that I can understand again with the speed and so forth why a lot of drivers that set themselves up qualifying usually are in good shape to win the races. And then the only manufacturer stat that's interesting is the fact that Ford has only won twice in the last 21 races. But don't worry if you're a Kevin Harvick fan, because he's the one that won both times.
Yeah, he'd be the one of the Ford camp you really want to look at. There hasn't been a pole winner win since 2011, which is weird. So, whoever wins the pole Saturday, if they qualify, if it goes on points, then or the metrics, whatever that is this week, then don't pick them. But other than that, I feel like the way the season's gone with the track position, it's probably going to be that way on Sunday, especially it was last year. As long as you don't. Last year we saw a lot of tire issues, but it was still early in the season. First kind of big high bank concrete track. Now they've got the data. I feel like that's kind of seemed to rectify itself this year. So it's just going to come down to pit road, speeding penalties, tires, any kind of issue.
Late race caution.
Yep, that's the late race caution you can't plan on.
You got dice? You have any dice on you?
Dice? No.
You have like a quarter you can flip? No.
Yeah, kind of feel that way. That's what's going to come down to. But the stuff you can't plan for, so that's why you kind of got to go with the stuff that you feel good about and plan for, and roll with it and hope for the best.
I'm at that point where I'm going to say, okay, starting this week, I'm going to handicap these races with the way that the results have been. And if this happens to be a week where the right winner with the right, the right driver wins the race, I'm going to say, oh, it's okay. I'm still going to go against it the next week. So until I start seeing some semblance of normalcy, I'm gonna just go with the idea that, you know what, just because you're supposed to win, I'm only going with those drivers the ones that have really good odds. Like for instance, if you have a Chase Elliott and a Kevin Harvick, no, Elliott's 5-1, not taking you. Harvick, you're 11-1, I'll take you. So I'll take the odds with those types of drivers, and then I'm going to throw money on other guys that just have shown a little bit of experience, winning experience, or at least good results experience at this track, and just try to get the best odds and throw money at it, because it ain't working the other way. Let's just put it that way. So I got to change my formula, and I'm going to do it this week, and I'm going to let it ride for at least a few weeks and see if anything changes. Do you know, we only had 2 drivers that we all picked the same. Do you know who those 2 drivers are?
Bowman?
Correct.
One more. Chastain?
You must have been cheating. Correct.
I was just looking at it. Those are I didn't pick a lot of sleepers. I kind of went with mine.
Well, I just told you I wasn't picking any of the favorites, so I
You
limited
did.
the
That's
field.
why I kind of went down. And I'm like, well, and I knew CJ doesn't typically take too many long shots, so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go in the middle.
And you didn't take Harvick.
No, the Ford trim, and I feel like Harvick will be a good top 10, top 5 type play. Will he win? 11-1 was a great number. I just didn't have enough to go. I went heavily with the Hendrick Gibbs guys. I mean, I feel good about them this week. I've hit 9 drivers, and 6 of them are with those camps. And I felt good about Trackhouse. So you throw both of them, there's 8 of my 9 drivers wrapped up right there. I just didn't have enough for Harvick.
Yeah, it's like I thought I was looking at CJ's wagers this week with your board. So, hey, why not, right? Because CJ's the one that's winning every week. And it just shows you, even though CJ's got all the wins, he's won 7 out of 10 races that well, let's just put it this way. He's had 7 out of 10 races where he hasn't lost money. And he's minus $51.
So, yep.
And he's not lost in 7 out of 10 races. So
in comparison, I forget what you had, but I had $302 or $309 that would have been won with Blaney last week.
Blaney.
We would have been way up there, just by 1. And I wanted to do that so bad for this because it's like I felt really strong with the Hendrick guys, which I know we'll talk to. I'm like, well, I didn't like Byron, but I really liked Elliott and Larson, and I thought with Bowman 16-1, Then I was like, well, I might as well just cast a wider net. Let's just get back a win. Let's not lose another 100. Let's just cast the net wider. But I really wanted to go all in on Larson and Elliott and Hamlin.
Hey, why not?
I just wanted to narrow it down, but I really just because I feel like it's such a limited pool that could actually win Dover. Let's just cast the net and try to get most of those guys. And
yeah, the long shots. This is not a long shot track.
No.
So. Yeah, the best chance you have is to hope to make money off of those 11 to 20-1 drivers, and you've got good money on one of them, which is really a little bit of strategy I tried to use to try to make some money. Look at last year, the last race at Dover, Christopher Bell was 25-1, and so he runs 4th, right, last year.
Yep.
In that race. And now and of course he's off to a good start this year. And now he's 9-1. So that's like the biggest, I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger ones I saw. And I realized with my picks, like I can't take both him and Hamlin. And Hamlin kind of called his shot a few weeks ago on his podcast that like, you're going to see a lot of me up front now.
Okay.
I'm going for it. And the first week last Talladega, he was there, and he couldn't help the fuel, and he's good at Dover. So he actually did say something. We could probably talk more about it next week. We had a good idea on this podcast. I don't know if you've seen it for this week. He thought that NASCAR should do a 32 driver after 10 weeks into the year. So Talladega would be the 10th race. Week 11, 32 driver bracket. We'll just build some momentum here. Let's do the 30. So the 32nd in points will be head-to-head against top driver in points. And then you'll go 2 versus 30, or 2 versus 31, 3
what
versus 30.
What do you mean, the finishing position?
Yeah, whoever finishes ahead of the other, you move on to the next round, which will be the next race.
Thing?
It's kind of separate, yeah. And he said and he's right. Think about the strategies you'd see knowing like, well, I still got to get points. I still want to win, but I'm also going against that guy. I don't want to wreck. I don't want to have a DNF. Like your strategies might be different. And his thing was like, let's put $5 million on the line for the winner. It adds a little more of a bracket. People like brackets. There's nothing going on in the summer sporting wise to get some attention. And at that 5th race, it'd be 5 weeks to get to it. I'm like, well, that's a pretty good idea. And I went and looked. And last year, if we did this, I've got it because I did it and I tweeted to Denny and he liked it. Your final round would have been at Gateway and it would have been Christopher Bell versus Chase Briscoe.
Oh, wow.
Briscoe would have been your champion. So it just adds, it helps. I think the other team, McDowell would have made the Final Four. So
okay.
It kind of makes, it's just the way it went. It's like, okay, that's a little different. So I liked it.
But then again, it shows you why the brackets in college basketball, why you always seem to get like a long shot like FAU in the Final Four.
Yep. Well, it goes to show the one-game mentality, one-race mentality. I mean, hell, the NBA. I mean, the 8 Milwaukee Bucks are the best record in the NBA, and they're about to get eliminated. They're down 3-1. So they lost game 1. So you just take the one random nature that can happen. And I mean, Hamlin's saying this, and he would have been a first-round exit for this. Dover would have been the first race. So it was intriguing.
Yeah, why not? These are the sort of new, fresh ideas that you need to be thrown into the mix to see if they can, especially for the younger crowd. The younger crowd.
Oh, it would change. Yeah, and it changes our approach to our shows, man. You now, and let's just say that happens in the 5 weeks and this kind of lull, just kind of getting the regular season grind, is we're probably talking more matchups than we're talking outright racing.
Oh, Vegas would love it.
Yeah, think of all the matchups you're betting on. And you're probably getting better numbers. You're getting a head-to-head. We're going over finding the nail in the head, hitting the nail on the head, or find the needle in the haystack and trying to find one winner out of this list. You're basically saying matchups, and you can parlay them. That might change things. I think that would be something, if I was NASCAR, I'd look at it. And then, hey, let the tracks bid on hosting these races. Get more money for them.
Yeah, you know how that works. They'll make sure that goes to all the tracks that they own.
Yep.
That kind of deal.
It'd be all formerly IST tracks. There'd be no SMI on there. But hey, it was worth a conversation.
Why not?
Like, hey, that would definitely shake some things up.
Sure. Hey, I don't see anything wrong with it. So that probably means NASCAR won't do it.
No, there were a lot of upsets. I would say when I was looking at it, there were a lot of. I got it right. There was a lot of upsets coming through that bracket.
But by the way, let's keep in mind that if the drivers know obviously what's going on, it just changes everything.
Feels different. Yeah, like the 2 seed lost first round, the 6 seed, the 10 seed, the 13 seed. Like you had Stenhouse, a 31 seed versus the 15 seed.
You know what? It sounds more like the way it works out in golf. Because you never get the really great matchup in match play golf, which I don't know, coincidentally or not, they've actually stopped it. Next year, they don't have any match play anymore. And
this would give you, and too with NASCAR, there's a lot of them. You just kind of throw an umbrella over a lot of these guys. There's not a lot of differential for some of the big teams. So you have your upsets, because the Final Four was 8 seed Truex versus 12 seed Briscoe and 14 seed Bell versus 23 seed McDowell was the Final Four. Plus, look at the attention it gives a team like McDowell or like Briscoe, and it just builds the sponsorships you could sell for that car for that playoff, and it's just something different. But they're still going for points. It's like they're not going to try, because like, hey, you still get a race win and the race. You're still racing, but it's just a little matchup inside the race that strategy might be different. And Hamlin's like $5 million for the champion and maybe a playoff point or two or something. Just throw their way.
Well, let's see if it picks up any steam or if it's something that everybody just forgets and that nobody talks about anymore. So hopefully it'll pick up steam.
It makes too much sense.
That's it. By the way, Larson was the favorite of this race last year at 4-1.
Yep.
Which is pretty much now, but Byron and Elliott weren't up where they were. Not sure why, but probably had to do with how good Larson was going at the time.
Yeah, he and Byron he was as high. He was starting his little downward spiral at this point.
That's right.
I think
that's right. Yeah.
He already got his win out of the way.
Yep. And I want to shout out to Proper by Design. So he sent out a message that he subscribed, which is not normal. And so I figured I'd shout out to Proper by Design because most of the time when you subscribe to a channel, you subscribe. That's all you do. You don't actually announce it. So since Proper by Design is going to announce that he subscribed to our channel, we are going to announce our thanks for subscribing to our channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for that. Okay, let's pick up where we left off. And by the way, still any questions along the line regarding what you think about our analysis, if we've missed something, anything, any questions or comments, just let us know. Okay, so Larson and Byron are 5-1. Both of you guys got money on them. And see, the thing is, and this is where it's tough, both of you guys have pretty much put almost half of your money on both those drivers just to try to get your money back, basically. Yep. So, and I completely understand. The only thing, though, because you have money on Elliott too, and CJ does not, and that surprised me, because I would think, I don't know what you would go with, but I would think it should be Larson and Elliott, and then Byron would be the one that I wouldn't put in there. Because as we said in the beginning, I mean, Elliott has 9 top 5s in 12 races with 2 wins. He won last year with the new car. And Larson has 7 top 5s in 14 races with a win. 3 of those top 5s are runner-ups. And he won in 2019 and was second in 2021. And in those 2 races, he led a combined over 400 laps. So I just think Larson and Elliott are just, they should be co-favorites. And Byron, I think, should be more like, if you want to put him as the third choice based on Hendrick and what kind of a strong start he's had so far, kind of, I could see that, but I kind of want his odds still to be really close to the next guy, whether it's Hamlin or Harvick.
Yeah, I thought Elliott and Larson, as you said, they should have been 5-1. And Elliott was actually my top play, not just because he's 6-1, they're 5-1, but you just look at his recent 5 top 5s in his last 7 there. And he's been running well this year. I mean, you take out Talladega, because it's Talladega, but he was, sneeze. Sorry about that. Got my cold. He was runner-up in Fontana. He was top 10 in Martinsville, and that was with a bum leg. And now he's going to a track that he's got success at. He won a stage in Talladega. And I also looked at granted, I can see where the Byron thing, because I put this all together, but in the 3 short tracks this season, Hendrick won Phoenix and Martinsville, or 2, I'm sorry, Phoenix and Martinsville. Last year, they led 94 of 400 laps, and the year before, they led 382 of 400 laps. Elliott did not race in the 2 races at Phoenix and Martinsville. So was Byron benefiting off that? Because it might have been Elliott's car that might have been that much better. And he's just that good here. So I probably would have had Elliott and Larson co-favorites. And honestly, Byron probably should be around the 8-1. I'm okay with him being third. But as you said, the gap between Bell and Hamlin and Byron should not be that large. And he's finished 4th in 2 of his last 3 Dover starts.
Sure.
He was good.
But last year with the new car, just 22nd.
Yeah, and he's shown that his finishes haven't not been that great lately. He's been running well, but his finishes haven't been great. He's been good on short tracks, but how much did their penalty? Was there an advantage that he had before the penalty? And now that advantage is gone. So I'll be curious what they do this weekend. I still think they're the favorites until we see otherwise. But I feel better against proven champions. Byron could eventually get there one day, but Elliott and Larson, they're champions for a reason, and they each have won at Dover.
I haven't looked at the reports, but I know there's been talk about the short track program. So what's the biggest issue?
Just it's hard to pass, and the dirty air, and like we said for Martinsville, like I cautioned with this new short track, like how is Martinsville going to be any different this year than last, even with the low downforce? You're not going fast enough. They can downshift in the turns. The tires are bigger, so you're getting more grip, and it kind of proved what we said. I mean, there was barely any passing. I don't think it's a coincidence that the track that you could pass on, that the metrics went up, was Richmond. And age surface, more abrasive on tires, multiple lanes to pass on. Dover can be that way. Dover was better last year. This package worked at Dover. So now you put a little more downforce off. I think it could work because you could pass. There's multiple lanes to pass on. So I do think it could play out well at Dover this weekend.
Okay. All right. Then we've got Hamlin. Now, you guys both put money on Hamlin, and I did not. And I'll tell you, I was this close to doing it. The reason I decided not to put money on Hamlin or even Truex is just because there's something about the way they're going. It's just they haven't got it yet. And I don't know if I want to chase those guys kind of until they do it. I think I'd rather, because if it doesn't happen, say for another 3 or 4 races or 5 or 6 races, then I'll feel like I'm chasing it. And I'm like, come on, because I kind of know once it starts, then they're kind of more than likely just going to go on for the rest of the season, and I only will miss out on one race. If it's a race I don't pick them at, because I just liked the fact that there were a lot of options here that we're going to get to once we pass these guys. But I could see why you would take Hamlin for sure, or even Truex. I know you did not take Truex. Only CJ did. But because, look, Hamlin, realistically, if you look at it, he only has 6 top 5s in 32 races. At Dover, 1 win. Last year was pretty decent. He led 67 laps, but that was a run, basically. And he only finished 21st. And then Truex, just putting those two together, he's 13-1. And I liked the odds. That's why I was going to do Truex. But again, I'm going to hold off. And I was a little bit concerned with his last 2 races there because he did not score a top 10. Previous 9, 8 top 5s, 3 runner-ups, 2 wins. And we know that the last couple of years, last year especially, and the beginning of this year, there's something that's just a little bit missing from Truex's camp. So that's why I just said, okay, as much as I like the odds at Truex, and for that matter, maybe even Hamlin, but especially Truex because his odds are better and he has a better history than Hamlin, I just kind of want to wait and see.
Yeah, Truex, I agree. He's a solid top 10 guy, but is he going to win? He's found more times than not to win races. He's got 12 top 10s in his last 16 starts at Dover, 8 top 4s in his last 11, but he's not really winning. He's got a win in the spring race of 2019. He had 3 straight runner-ups after that, but he's just not winning. He was 19th in 2021. He was in the top 5 last year. Remember, he battled with Chastain and wrecked on the final lap. That's why he finished 12th. But he wasn't better than the Hendrick cars, and he's not better than the Hendrick cars this year, so I don't know how he's magically going to jump above him. Hamlin was the only one that had a fighting chance against the Hendrick cars last year. Remember, he had 2 tires go down. That was the only reason he wasn't, and that's why he finished 21st, is he had not 1 but 2 tires go down. And I think a tire fell off on a pit stop when he was exiting, if I'm not mistaken. So he had issues, but he still led 67 laps. He led 115 laps in race 1 in 2020, 218 laps in 2019, 5 top 7s in his last 8 there. I just feel if anybody is going to get that Hendrick bubble, and I misspoke earlier, they won all 3 short tracks. I forgot Richmond. They won Phoenix, Richmond, and Martinsville. Hendrick went 1, 2, 3, 4 in 2021 there, 1, 5, 6 last year. They're off to a 3-for-3 start in short tracks this year, so you got to look for somebody to break into that bubble. I just don't see it being Truex. I know we'll get to him in a second. Bell, he was 4th last year, but I just struggle he's going to break into it. Hamlin's the only one I feel like the aggression is like, if you're going to get somebody up front here that's going to just break that bubble, Hamlin seems like the guy. And 9-1 I thought was a fair number for him to do that.
Yeah, the other thing, and we've kind of mentioned it, but statistically speaking, when you're talking about the struggles so far and why we're saying that we're not feeling it with Truex and Hamlin, because I just kind of noticed it myself, is that if you look at it, they combined have 1 top 5 each, and that was at Martinsville. That's it. Top 5s, and that shows you something's missing. For Bell at 9-1, now nobody took Bell, and as we said, he was 25-1 last year in this race because he had done nothing in the Cup Series. Has the 4th place finish, still hasn't led a lap in the Cup Series at Dover. Look, at 14-1, at 13-1, I'm thinking about it because of his Xfinity Series success. That's it. 3 top 5s. I mean, he had a carburetor issue in the 1 race, so throw that out. So in 3 races where he had an effective car, all top 5s and 2 wins. So you know that the track's fine for Christopher Bell, but not at 9-1. I mean, that's just that's what the best of the best, and he hasn't shown that yet in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I thought if anybody was going to be 9-1, him and Harvick probably should have flipped. Like, if he was a double digit, I probably would have taken him. But 9-1 is like just not enough gain there for the $100 limit that we have. It's like, what am I really gaining? Because I'd be trying to break even, and I've got to drop somebody down low. So that's why I faded him. I mean, he was 4th. Is he going to be a solid top 10 car? Yes. He's probably a good bet for a top 10 finish. But for an outright win, I'm not saying it can't happen, but again, you've got to beat the Hendrick. There's 4 bullets in Hendrick's chamber that all 4 of them could win. Is he really going to beat them? He's got to beat 4 of them. That's going to be hard to do on Sunday or Monday, whenever that date is.
Okay, yeah. All right, so now we start getting to most of my drivers because I haven't picked one yet. So we'll start with Harvick. So I invested $25 in Harvick. Again, you did not put money on Harvick. His history here, combined with the season he's having, because remember, going into last week, what was he, 20-1?
Yeah.
And we talked about it last week that it was, for me, it was about, we know he's done it before in these draft races. He's having such a good season. That's great odds. I'm putting him in there. And the only reason that he wasn't there at the end was because they didn't have gas. Otherwise, he might have won the race. Who knows? So that is an indicator that something is much different with Kevin Harvick's team this year. I'm sure it might have a lot to do with the fact that, every time he goes out there, he knows, history is pretty much coming to a close with his career. But you've got somebody that has 23 top 10s out of 42, 10 top 5s, 3 wins. He's led over 1,600 laps. He's led over 200 laps in a single race at Dover 5 times, including 355-lap race in a 2015 win. He's got 8 straight top 10s at Dover with 5 top 5s and a win in 2020 when he led 223 laps. I'm getting 11-1. He's really close to winning. I just think he's too good to pass up. I am very surprised you didn't take him.
I just didn't have enough money left. He would have been my next guy up over Bell, as I mentioned that. The 7 top 6s in his last 8 sold me. I just didn't have anything left to throw his way, but he would be one I would for sure go his way. If you're not capped, we do it as our league, but if you're not capped, he's too good to pass up at 11-1.
And then you have Chastain at 14-1. So I put some money. I put 10 on Chastain and 20 on Bowman at 16-1, and he's the only Hendrick I got. But I think, look, how do you not like Bowman this week when he's off to his best start? It's cooling off just a little, but not a lot, just a little. But he's 16-1 with 5 top 5s in his last 6 Dover starts, a runner-up and a win when he led 98 laps. So he didn't steal the win. He won that, fair and square in 2021. 5th last year with the new car. I don't understand why. Great, you want to give me 16-1. This has got to be Bowman's best track. I can't imagine he has better numbers than this. And as far as Chastain at 14-1, 3rd last year leading 86 laps. Don't care about his previous 7. That was the other car. And if you look at his last 2 Xfinity Series starts that were in 2020, he finished 2nd and 3rd. So if he's comfortable with his car, like we know he is now, he seems to do well at Dover, sitting there 2nd in points, and I'm getting 14-1. So these are the exact kind of cars that I want in this type of race.
Yeah, these 2, and we'll talk about my 3 later, my steals of the odds. It just was baffling that Bowman at 16-1. We just talked about his teammates. We just talked about Hendrick being 3 for 3 on short tracks this year. 1, 2, 3, 4 in 2021, 1, 5, 6 last year. How was he 16-1? So that was an absolute no-brainer. And same with Chastain. And as you said, his 3rd last year, he was 4th and 6th in the 2 stages. So it's not like he just happened to luck out. He led 86 laps. So to snag him at 14-1 just seemed way low to me. So while they're there, got to take them.
And then Reddick is 17-1, but he's one of these. This is just not the week for Reddick. No. None of us have taken him. 1 top 10 out of 4, never led a lap. Couple top 5s in 5 Xfinity Series races. 30th last year. Just nothing really. There's just way too many other options to be thinking about Reddick. Kyle, on the other hand, at 18-1, you're the only one that didn't take Kyle. I didn't care about anything else other than, once again, the combination of the history at the track, sort of like Harvick, having a good season with the 2 wins, and I'm getting 18-1. I mean, he's got 21 top 10s out of 34. 13 of those are top 5s. 3 of those are wins. He's led over 1,300 laps. And the new car last year, I know it's a different car, but on the new car last year, he was 7th and led 103 laps. I am shocked with Kyle Busch's name coming off a win, his 2nd of the season. With those stats, I have never seen Kyle Busch with these odds before in this type of situation.
I think they probably listened to his press conference from Sunday, and because it's why I faded him. I was like, 18-1. Well, wait a minute. He did mention that their area of emphasis that they're struggling on with RCR this year is short tracks. He mentioned that he's seen us on short tracks. That's where we got to get better. Tyler Reddick in this car last year was 30th. Austin Dillon has never had a top 5 finish at Dover before. So RCR has struggled on this track. And I think that's probably why Vegas was like, well, he's saying they're not very good on short tracks. This team hasn't been very good there even recently. We'll just kind of throw in. I thought it was interesting he was below Reddick. I thought maybe he'd probably be up in if Bowman's 16-1. I don't know why he wasn't at least up there with him, but that was why. He just said they're not very good on short tracks this year, and RCR hasn't been kind of a strong suit for them lately either, so I faded him because of that.
Yeah, well, just taking a look, I know he finished 30th last year at Dover, but just taking a look, Reddick, early in the year last year, he was 3rd at Phoenix. He was 2nd. Well, that was Bristol Dirt. Darlington count?
No, that's kind of a intermediate.
That's different. He was 2nd there.
Richmond. What was he at Richmond? I think Richmond, he was outside the top 20, wasn't he?
Richmond. Let's see. Richmond. No. 12th.
12th. Okay.
And yeah. So so he had. It wasn't terrible.
No, he's not terrible. It was just
the Dover was a bad race.
Yeah. It will take strategy for. If Kyle was back in the Toyota, there'd be no way he'd be 18-1. But I just think, again, for RCR to beat Hendrick on Chevy Power outright, it would take a lot, I feel like, for them to close that gap at Dover.
And look, again, that might be the case, but the strategy now for me is I'm going to take a car like Kyle Busch that may not be the perfect fit like those 300 cars at the top, but that's not who's winning these races.
Nope.
So
you can take one late race caution.
Because we know Kyle Busch can draft, but he just has not had a good history of it. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he was always a very aggressive driver when he was younger and impatient. And I think that played against him. But you knew it wasn't a bad draft. It wasn't like Truex. It's just that a lot of bad luck comes into that as well. So that's why I'm just going to think a little bit differently now and go, hey, he's had a good experience here before. All he has to do is hang around the top 10 until the last 30 or 40 laps, have some late caution come out. Hey, I win. So that's NASCAR.
How could happen?
Well, yeah. All right.
Could happen.
Next up, now you don't have any of these guys. Matter of fact, neither one. CJ's done. His biggest long shot was Kyle Busch. You don't have a driver until 45-1. So I took Blaney and Briscoe out of that group. Logano only has 5 top 5s out of 26, 41 laps in 26 races. The reason and by the way, Buescher and Kozlowski are 35-1. Wallace is 35-1. And then you get to the 45-1s. But the two I took were Blaney and Briscoe. And I put $10 each on them. For Blaney, I like the way he's trending in the right direction. He does have a couple top 10s. He's not shut out. And if you look at it, we're still talking about a driver sort of similar to Bell, where if you look at his last 4 Xfinity Series races at Dover, 1st, 2nd, 4th, 4th. So he knows how to drive at Dover. It's just a matter of the Fords, besides Kevin Harvick, have had a problem. Penske's had a problem. At Dover, that's more what that is. But, again, perfect situation for the way NASCAR is going this year. I'm going to take a bargain driver who knows how to run at the racetrack, and maybe this is just all he has to do is hang out in the top 10 and get lucky. For Briscoe, he had a better run in the Cup Series last year with the new car than the first year. So he hasn't had a lot of experience at Dover in the Cup Series, but in the Xfinity Series, in his last 4 races, 1st, 10th, 5th, and 5th, and so he knows how to race at Dover. And in his last 3 races, we talked about it, 5th, 5th, and 4th. And again, I'm getting 35-1. So I'm trying to get lucky in a season of luck.
He's a good one at 35-1. As you said, and Clint Boyer in that car before Briscoe had 4 top 10s and a runner-up in his last 7 starts at Dover. So that car statistically has been good there, and we've seen what Harvick's done as a teammate. So 35-1 is a good one. Logano, I just don't trust at all. 29th last year. Penske I struggled with because they were 26th, 29th, and 36th last year.
Yeah.
Just not one of their better tracks. Logano is just not, outside of Super Speedway, has not really done much this season, and they've struggled kind of on short tracks. One guy that I almost took, I don't think he'll win outright. That's the only reason I didn't. But 35-1, Chris Buescher, Bristol, concrete track. Similar to this, just a little bit smaller. He won. He was 8th at Dover last year. He led 18 laps.
That was his best finish.
Yeah. So for 35-1, a guy to look at is, I think Chris Buescher and Briscoe are probably got better value at 35-1 than your pair of Penske's at 22-1. But yeah, I would definitely watch a Chris Buescher this weekend as well.
Yeah, it's a good one, Buescher. And he's coming off a 3rd place finish. Say what you want about how lucky it was still momentum. Matter of fact, he's improved those last 4 races overall. And if he keeps that up, then he has a shot this week. All right. Now we get to your 45-1 shots. Gibbs, you took both Gibbs and Suarez. I took Suarez. Gibbs has never raced in the Cup Series before. Has he? Did he race last year?
Nope, that was before the injury.
Okay.
So, nope, he has not.
2 Xfinity Series races last year, 3rd and 5th. But he only had 1 lap led, so I wasn't overly impressed with that because I know he's been a lot better at other tracks. Suarez, though, with the 5 top 10s out of 10, 14th last year, but also very good in the Xfinity Series with 5 top 10s out of 6, 2 top 5s, and a win back in 2016. So for me, it was, again, same setup. He's done well at the track before, even if it was mainly in the Xfinity Series, but 5 top 10s out of 10 is not bad for Suarez in a cup race. And you're getting 45-1.
Yeah, and I even went further with him. I went back to his Truck Series starts there. So I combined between Truck, Xfinity, and Cup. He's made 18 starts at Dover. He's in the top 11, 13 of those 18, 5 of which in the top 3. So, and you got to think, he wasn't with, like, Stuart Haas was kind of down when he rode for them at that point. Gibbs was kind of trending. They were kind of running away when he was with them. He was with the Gaunt brothers in there. So you get him at 45-1, and his teammate, we just said, is 4th and 6th at the pair of stages and led 86 laps last year. So I don't see that big of a difference between him and Chastain. So while he's 45-1, I snagged him. And then Gibbs, the only reason I did is he's running better. Granted, as our viewers mentioned, that he was the top 10 at Talladega at the end. It would have been another top 10 finish. He was his car that he's racing. Remember, this is Kyle Busch's car. Led 103 laps last year. So if he's a Gibbs guy. We talked about how good Gibbs could be. The only reason I feel like he's 45-1 is you don't have the name recognition yet of like what's different between Truex and him other than experience.
Did you say Kyle Busch or Kurt Busch?
Gibbs, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch led 103 laps in this car that he's driving. The 54 was the 18 last year. So with that car being that good,
that gets confusing sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, it could. For 45-1, I'm like, he's a Gibbs guy for that. Granted, a few weeks ago he was 80-1, so his odds keep dropping. I feel like he's, again, if that part that was confiscated and the R&D center was really a big advantage and their speed kind of comes back a little bit, I think Gibbs are there to capitalize. I think they're that next team up, other than like a Trackhouse. Hence, I picked Chastain and Suarez. So why not? If I'm going to go in on Gibbs and Trackhouse, I might as well go all in. Other than Bell and Truex, I didn't feel good value because if you count 8 of my 9 drivers belong in this camp, so might as well go with the longer shots.
But I mean, by the way, last week, even though they weren't in my picks, I didn't even pick them until like an hour before the race. I had a few bucks in my account, and I was like, all right, let me see if there's any long shots that I haven't taken yet. And I noticed that Gibbs was like, I think he was 60-1.
Yeah, I think he was around that. Yeah.
Gregson was 80-1. So all right, perfect. You know, they're both set up nicely. I'll put a buck or two on each of those, and that's part of the reason why, combined with all the picks that I had originally, I had everything set up perfectly, and then Gibbs was, as what happened with our viewer, the bad luck with the running out of gas and so forth. All right, at 65-1, we both put money on Ricky Stenhouse. So Almirola pre-Stenhouse 65-1. I was thinking a little bit about Almirola because he's actually done pretty good the last couple of races. And he had done nothing all year, really. So something's, I don't know, maybe it's just timing, the tracks, but something may be starting to click for Almirola. He has 2 top 5s out of 19, so nothing, actually 2 top 5s in his last 9, which is usually good for Almirola at a racetrack. Priest, no way. But Stenhouse has 3 top 10s in his last 7 and was second last year. I don't know how he got to second last year, but he did. And he's in this run he's got going on where he has 3 top 10s in his last 5 and a win, of course, at the 500. So, yeah, I felt he based on those numbers, I felt Stenhouse was a long shot no-brainer.
He was the lock for 65-1. I mean, he said he was runner-up last year, and I feel like they're better this year than they were last year. I don't know if the Daytona 500 momentum pushed him that way, but more resources. But, yeah, for 65-1, he had to go his way. And Priest, I'll be honest, I looked at him only because Cole Custer in this car had a pair of top 10s as a rookie. He was 10th again in 2021, and Priest was 4th in an Xfinity Series race with JGR in 2018. So it's not a terrible track for him. But, again, is he going to beat the Hendrick cars? Is he going to beat the Gibbs cars? Is he going to beat Trackhouse? I don't think he's going to be the top finisher in his own organization. You got to look at Harvick and Briscoe over him. So even at 65-1, like realistically outright winner, I just don't see it. Stenhouse, I mean, like you said, second last year. What's one more spot? What's one more fluke? Something happening at the end, and he happens to be there. So 65-1 is worth the risk for that.
Absolutely. And then at 100-1, Cindric and Dillon and McDowell. Cindric was definitely the interesting one because, and if you want to throw a buck on him, I think that's not a bad idea. I don't care what happened last year. He had some problems. But in the Xfinity Series, he's raced 7 times. He was top 10 all 7 races with 4 straight top 5s and a win. And that was in 2021. He led 51 laps in that race. So, look, if you're looking for sort of like with Cindric and Blaney, and if you're thinking about whether Ford can turn the tables a little bit, specifically Penske, at least you're getting rewarded with it, with odds like 100-1 for Cindric or 22-1 for Blaney.
Yeah, I mean, the fact you're getting Cindric, a Penske guy, that's a big team. 100-1 just tells you enough. Like, you might as well just go his way. Especially if you don't feel like, if you feel like you want to fade on Hendrick or Gibbs, like, no, I don't trust one of those organizations. I'm just going to fade 4 of those drivers off the bat. Then you've got money to risk a few bucks Cindric's way because it's a low risk, high reward on him at 100-1. I mean, Penske's a big enough team. Yes, Ford's won twice in the last 21 races. Yes, Penske struggled on short tracks this year and then this track in general lately. But they're a big enough team to figure out eventually, don't you think? Ford's not going to lose forever.
At 100-1, yeah.
And if you're going to ride with any Penske guy, go with a 100-1 guy. It doesn't hurt anything. So, yeah, that's definitely a solid play. Because we talked about Dillon. I just don't trust him. McDowell is a front row car on a higher speed short track. Really going to win? Probably not. But 100-1, I mean, you never know. Eric Jones, another guy that's been good at Bristol and Dover in the past at 200-1. Can't hurt. Haley's kind of been around.
Was the one that I was thinking about.
Yep.
Because he actually had some decent experience in the Xfinity Series and had a good run last year.
Yeah, you never. I mean, if Stenhouse can finish second, the door is open for one of these guys. And if you fade the favorites, you might as well play some of these sleepers late on the bottom part, so it doesn't hurt.
And what about Todd Gilliland?
Coming around
with the
again.
3 top 10s in his last 5 races.
Yeah, I was speaking about him last week. That's why I went his way, and here he is again. Granted, he's McDowell's teammate. Do I think his first one's going to come at Dover? Probably not. But I still want to count out a top 10. If you could find a plus money top 10 wager, it doesn't hurt to throw it his way and parlay it with something, because we could see some carnage before at Dover.
Do you think that McDowell's in trouble if he doesn't pick things up and he just has another blah kind of year?
No, because I think the sponsor loves him. I think use a no pun intended. The team, I think, because he won the Daytona 500, is one of those like, hey, we're always going to be in debt to you. You gave us the win. He would be one I would watch because of the Ford connection. The Stuart Haas pick him up for a year or two to kind of do a stopgap.
What do you mean, if Almirola leaves? Or?
Well, ride's already open with Harvick. Did they move Custer back over? Yeah. A name I've been hearing is Josh Berry. Where does Josh Berry play in the mix over there? Does Ricky Stenhouse get brought over? People probably don't realize that Stenhouse and Priest are both, their agent is Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick Inc.
Okay.
So what better person to replace Kevin Harvick than the guy he represents? That's how Priest is there. A lot of people don't realize that. Kevin Harvick vouched for Priest.
Well, he better pick it up.
Yeah, I think Cole Custer is the only one sitting back and is like, I told you so.
Yeah.
This car looks zero different than when I was in it. So it's not me. So if anything, it's helped the stock. It's Cole Custer.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, this car doesn't look any different than it did last year, and it's different drivers. So it might help him get back in the swing of things. But Josh Berry could be a hot commodity. Stenhouse and McDowell. I keep hearing those names come up for a potential.
Well, hey, if Stenhouse can close the year the way he's began it, then he's perfect. He's the guy. Give him a shot.
You got to remember, too, he was a dirt guy, and Tony Stewart, he loves Stenhouse. It just makes sense to bring Stenhouse over there. He's got the Daytona 500 win under his belt. But I still think, even saying those names, they've got to get younger. You're putting 30-year-olds. I'm in my 30s too, so I'm not saying that 30s
all of a sudden Ricky Stenhouse is a journeyman.
But you got to think he's in his 30s. So how much longer does he have? All these other teams are getting younger. I mean, Hendrick's got all 4 guys under the age of 29, and they're locked in for the future. So Harvick's not going to be, obviously, he's not going to be around past next year or past this year. Almirola's year to year. It's not like he's a consistent race winner. We've seen Priest hasn't done much. Briscoe's kind of your future, but I think he's like 27, 28 years old. So who is their future? They've got to figure that out.
Well, look, it hasn't worked out for basketball. Eventually it was going to happen. And it took a little longer than I thought, but I knew about 10 years ago that basketball was in big trouble as far as allowing the kids to go pretty much straight from high school, and then we have to come for a year. That did nothing really.
No.
The constant quickly from high school to the pros has just decimated the sport. There's just the talent level is terrible. The draft is meaningless. The players in the draft who are these guys? They're just, they're based on just projections.
Yeah.
Most of them. It's not good. Now, I say that because what you don't want to do is just, hey, let's go out to some young guys. The more you start doing that, then all of a sudden you're pushing these guys in too fast into the Cup Series where they really don't belong, and it wouldn't be good for the sport. So, because they're starting to get into that situation, which we've talked about, where some of these veteran drivers starting to leave.
Yep. Another guy to watch there too for that seat, but he's getting some time, is Zane Smith. You can tell it's coming. Where does he end up?
Go.
Todd Gilliland. He's been running well with front row. There's just only so many places you can go. And then, too, with the Todd Gilliland thing, I like him. He's been nice to me. He's been giving me good quotes before, but is Harrison Burton going to do something? Or does that Wood Brothers ride go to someone else? I mean, eventually, at some point, you're a de facto fourth Penske car.
And
granted, you don't get all the resources. Yeah, he was up front. Granted, he hit that bump in 3, which there would have been a good, if we were live, we could have talked about it, but the tunnel and just rose his car up and down a minute, and Gragson just didn't react quick enough and spun him, but he was there. But at the end of the day, he didn't finish again. So he's got to find a way.
He won the Xfinity race?
Burton, right? Jeb Burton, yep.
Oh, Jeb Burton won the Xfinity race.
Yeah, his cousin, yeah.
Yeah, that was a free-for-all, man. That was wrecks galore in that race.
Yeah, it was a violent race.
Wow. That was crazy. All right, so the schedule. Kansas, Darlington, we get the All-Star race, and then the Coke 600. Yep. So it's going to be a busy month of May. Matter of fact, we might start May with Dover on Monday.
Yeah, probably.
So just keep that in mind again. And Kansas, how was Kansas with the new car?
Remember last year it was better, but Vegas this year wasn't.
Oh.
So we'll see. Remember, that was one that Hendrick guys like Larson and Byron pretty much led all but like 20 or so. I got the stat for next week, but they dominated. So it kind of looks like the old Kansas prior to the next gen. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully that was just a glitch. Want to thank you guys, Matthew, Paul, for interacting. Don't forget, anybody out there wants to interact with us whenever we do these shows live. I can't tell you how many of these we're going to do on a weekly basis. We might end up doing them, but as long as we know that there's not going to be any potential pitfalls, because Eric does have a day job. So, we don't want to promote it, and then all of a sudden Eric's got to do something else, So we'll play it by ear, but it gives us an opportunity to interact with you guys, and that's something that is important to us. So, and then we'll let you guys know as soon as we figure out when we can do a live show on race day. So that's coming. And by the way, the Indy 500, that's when next month?
The 28th.
Oh, so it's end of the month. Okay.
It was 5 weeks from Sunday, so we're 33 days.
And you start getting active with that when? In a couple of weeks?
Yeah, because the road course race is out there in a couple of weeks, so not next week and the weekend after.
Okay. And is there racing this week?
Yep, IndyCar's at Barber, so I figured we'd probably do another video Thursday or so again.
All right. And F1's this week too.
Yeah, the trifecta, all three on the same day.
So
maybe NASCAR may not be, but yeah.
So CJ will be doing his F1 report later this week, and Eric will do the IndyCar report later this week as well. So that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.
See you later.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
All righty.